Hello, everyone. Welcome to the biochemistry session. My name is Sarah, and I'm a member of the undergraduate recruitment office at Carleton here. Thanks for popping in. So I'm just going to get started. We have about 45 minutes today. So although we're meeting here virtually today, it's important for us to recognize that Carleton campus is situated on the unceded Algonquin territory. Just a reminder here as we start this session that you can ask your questions in the Q&A toggle and feel free to use the chat. I know a couple of you have done so already. Hi, Nigel. Hi, Antonia. And Shelley, Dr. Hepworth has said hello as well. So feel free to use those resources as we go through the presentation today. Before we introduce our speakers, I just wanted to send you a reminder that you can speak with the representatives in the academic booth after following the presentation, and definitely encourage you to check out the Student Services booth as well to learn all about Carleton and what we offer. So we might as well get started here. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Bigger and Dr. Hepworth, and they will be telling you all about the wonderful biochemistry program at Carleton.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Just going to switch my screen over. So just to reiterate what Sarah was pointing out, if you have any questions along the way today, just feel free to write them in the chat box, and Dr. Hepworth, she'll be monitoring the chat and answering your questions. And after the talk, after the presentation, feel free to join us at the booth, and you can have some one-on-one chat, ask some questions about administration, maybe student life, things like that, if anything piques your curiosity from the presentation today. And so I'll be talking a little bit about what is biochemistry, what is the biochemistry program like at Carleton, and then diving a little bit into student life, right? So once you're here, once you're at Carleton, what's the day-to-day going to be like? So I'm going to switch my screen. So hopefully you can see my slides. And so there's never been a better time to be a biochemistry student, right? I'm a biochemist. I'm in the field, and I see the job prospects and the advancements that's happening in the field. And I really do think that there's never been a better time to be a biochemistry student and to enroll in the program. There's a number of different transformative techniques that really kind of entering into the news, right? You may have heard of CRISPR-Cas9, genome editing, things like that, precision medicine and diagnostics. All of that's related to biochemistry. There's some huge advances in computing. You may have heard of deep learning or machine learning, and how we're using that to design new drugs, right? Or to understand complex problems in ways that we could never imagine before. And there's also new global challenges. The immediate one that comes to mind, right, is climate change that we're dealing with right now. And it's not just, the warming of the earth or climate, it's the impacts to organisms, to animals, and migration patterns and things like that, and how animals adapt and deal with cold or warmth at the biochemical level. And also even food security. So biochemistry touches all of these different things, and we'll be talking a little bit about them today. So what is biochemistry? Really, I think, it's in the name, right? So it's an overlap between chemistry and biology. It's the chemistry of biological things. If you're interested in chemistry and you're interested in biology, then there's a good chance that you're here because you're interested in biochemistry or the intersection between these two things. I know I was, right? I was interested in chemistry coming out of high school. I was interested in biology. Or I think for me, I was really good in chemistry, but I was really interested in biology. And so bringing those two things together is that intersection, the biochemistry, or looking at the chemistry of how living organisms function, right? It touches on lots of different topics, lots of different fields. It's very diverse field. You'll see that in the talk today. There's lots of different research topics or areas that all involve biochemistry in some degree. And you'll see that in your program, right? So once you start, you'll take some broad courses, and then you'll realize that your biochemistry degree can go in a multitude of different ways. It could be, you could end up doing agriculture, right? Some agricultural sciences and plant biochemistry. You could end up making, being interested in drug design and pharmaceuticals or medicine, or, more the health side and of disease biochemistry. And so there's lots of different avenues here. And so what are some examples? So I mentioned agriculture, food security, things like that, how plants thrive and adapt at the biochemical level, right, at the cellular level. Drug design and pharmacology. We actually have courses at Carleton in and basically medicinal biochemistry. My lab works in drug design and making therapeutics. Animal biochemistry, we have labs on campus that look at how, so this is a picture of a frog that's frozen. So you could call it a frogsicle, right? It's completely frozen. You could tap it on the bench and it would clink. This is a wood frog. It's a Canadian species and northern, basically North America. It freezes solid in the wintertime. And how does it do that? How does it adapt at the biochemistry level, right? And so how does it deal with ice? How does it deal with shutting everything off and then turning it all back on at the metabolic level, right? And so looking at how things adapt to extreme environments. And so we have faculty that work on vertebrates that freeze, like frogs and hatchling turtles. And we have also faculty that work with insects, right? And so how I think something like as common as a mosquito, how does it survive winter, and how does that affect its global distribution? There's cellular biochemistry. Again, this is maybe where my lab is more focused on, but this can be related to disease biochemistry. How does the cell function in a particular disease state, or what is its dysfunction? How do proteins work? DNA, RNA, all of this kind of stuff. You also might be interested in methods, right? You might be more of a hands-on person, interested in the intricate details of machines and how things work and small numbers. And so you might be more interested in the methods and analytical side of biochemistry. And we have courses in the third and the fourth year that focus just on this, right? And so you may have heard of something called mass spectrometry or NMR, or these kind of high level types of techniques that look at really tiny molecular events, right? And so there's opportunities to to learn how to use these pieces of equipment, understand how they work, and things like that. And so that's more in the methods and analytical biochemistry side. In the news, you may have heard of CRISPR and Cas9 for genome editing. This is a technique used to change DNA in a cell or an organism. And so a lot of this holds the potential to really study how things work in the context of a cell, right? And so, for example, lots of diseases might be driven by just a single change, just one change in an organism's DNA, right? Out of trillions of base pairs, just one critical change can drive a disease. And so this is a technique that offers the promise of being able to take that change or that mutation and switch it back to what it's supposed to be. And so there was two researchers that were responsible for discovering this, and they won the Nobel Prize just recently. It's useful plant breeding, like I was talking about, disease therapies, cancer therapies, inherited diseases, and things like that. And so we actually have biochemistry labs in our institute that work with CRISPR-Cas9 in the lab. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, using these molecular scissors to reach into an organism's genome, then we certainly do that, and you can actually get experience doing it as well. Advances in computing, right? So we have a program that's a bioinformatics program, right, in biochemistry. And so maybe you're interested in computers or the intersection between computers and living organisms, right? And so one way that we do that is, we've developed all of these new techniques that do a great job in gathering lots and lots and lots of data, too much data for us to interpret just by looking at it. And so we have to use computers to dig deep into that large amounts of data. We call it big data. Look into it and discover patterns, right? Meaningful patterns that maybe tell us something about a biological system, could be a disease or something like that. And so that's kind of the advances in computing. So we use machine learning, deep learning, kind of this artificial intelligence, you could call it, to tell us the secrets, right, that happen in the cell. This kind of stuff can be used to predict biochemical events in the future, right? Could be to forecast or predict a disease progression, could be to predict modifications that are made to a protein. But it's this whole theme of taking all of this data that we have now in the world and distilling it into being able to answer really kind of complex research questions. And we use supercomputers to do that. Yeah, and so it's kind of this big data, and you'd be introduced to it through the bioinformatics program. And I mentioned before, there's challenges and kind of these global challenges, climate change, could be environmental toxins that are showing up in the environment, could be food security, and that could be related to climate change or environmental toxins, for example. And so, if this is something that you're interested in, we have researchers and research projects and faculty involved in toxicology, right? So how do toxins affect the biological system, right? And so there's research in how environmental toxins like flame retardants that don't break down in the environment, how they might drive diabetes, right? As an example. And so, that sounds interesting. There's researchers that work on climate change and how changes in temperature really kind of stress organisms, stress plants, animals, and how does that affect their distribution, their survival, things like that, their general health. And so, just from these three examples, hopefully you can see that biochemistry reaches into a lot of different areas. And so you'll kind of start in your program being generalists, right? Being introduced to a lot of different areas in biochemistry, and then you'll have the opportunity to focus into your interests, right? Maybe you don't know what you're interested yet in, and nobody really does this early in their program or just coming out of high school. But by the time you get to your third or fourth year in the program, you'll start developing your interests, and you'll have the opportunity to team up with researchers that share your interests, and you'll get some hands-on experience in doing that type of research. And so where do our biochemists work, right? We're in Ottawa, so a lot of opportunities in Ottawa come from research laboratories, so government research laboratories and research hospitals here in the Ottawa area. So a lot of our graduates go to Health Canada, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, industry, non-government organizations. So we have some biotech industries here in Ottawa: Abbott, Spiderwort, Spartan Biosciences. Just a couple of years ago, we had a large cohort of our biochemistry students get scooped up by Tweed, the cannabis company, And so they're interested in how do cannabinoids get metabolized and kind of the biochemistry behind cannabis. And so they scooped up a bunch of our biochemists. And then, there's also jobs available in academia if you're interested in research at universities, colleges, teachers, becoming faculty and researchers and things like that. And so lots of different diverse opportunities. Lots of students go into pharmacy, medicine, for examples, as well, and you'll see more slides on that. And so possible career paths include agriculture, food, maybe food security, biomedical product development, so working in the biotech industry, whether that's making therapeutics or developing them, or different products related to the health field. Biomedical data management, right? I was talking about big data and how to interpret data. And that even comes down to how to understand genetic data, right? And so getting into this, epidemiology and genetic counseling and things like that, and how to understand a person's genetic makeup and how that may predisposition them for different diseases in the future, right? Combinatorial drug and enzyme design, environmental toxicology, right? So there's a growing interest now in toxicology, and certainly even in the government organizations. And so a lot of people are working in that. Could be forensics, medical research and technology, medicine, dentistry, pharmaceutical sciences, veterinary medicine, science policy, and I also included science writing and broadcasting, right? And so I know I did part of my academic education here at Carleton when I was a student, and one of the one of my peers at the time now works in science writing. So she moved to England, where she works for a very large science writing company, and so she works there as an editor. Could be technical sales, marketing, teaching and instruction, things like that. So very broad range of fields. But we're also here to help you navigate this. And so even though biochemistry looks broad, you'll refine your interests as you move through the program. Plus, the faculty are here to kind of help you if you have questions, maybe put you in touch with people in the field if you want to get a little bit more. Maybe you have more specific questions that you want answered and things like that. But we're here to help. Right, so I've been kind of stressing that biochemistry is very diverse, and we have diverse learning opportunities to complement that, right? So inside of the Institute, you can do your honors degree, right, which is just a biochemistry Bachelor of Science honors. You can do a biochemistry and biotechnology honors degree. So maybe you're more interested in the biotechnology side of biochemistry, manufacturing, and things like that. You might be interested in the big data, right, and how to interpret big data. So then might be interested in the computational biochemistry as well program. That's an honors degree as well. Or you could just do, as maybe you're not interested in an honors degree, you could do a biochemistry major's degree as well. So no matter what program you decide to enroll in, there's award-winning and world-class teaching and research faculty that will be there to teach you, to mentor you. Maybe you want to volunteer in their lab and get a little bit of insight into what they do. Those opportunities will be made to you. There's also co-op opportunities, and there'll be another slide on that coming up. Maybe you want some real world experience in biochemistry, maybe in industry, right? As part of your undergraduate degree. Well, you can get that, right? So if you're interested in getting some real world education as part of your undergraduate degree, look into the co-op options. So there's a co-op office, right, that you can direct those questions to. They can kind of talk to you about time, commitments, how to apply to it, and what all does it involve. But essentially, you can gain industry experience all while completing your degree. So what does 4 or 5 years, typically 4-year degree look like at Carleton? So this is just a broad kind of map to show you the different types of courses that you'll be exposed to at different years in your degree. I know it can be a little overwhelming, certainly at the beginning, or at least it was for me when I was doing my undergrad. But essentially, it starts like this. Very broad classes. You'll be in shared classes with people in biology or chemistry, or maybe even physics. And you'll all be taking kind of these introductory chemistry, biology, math, and physics courses, right? And so you can see them in the first year, these 1,000 level courses, which mean that they're aimed for first year. But you'll have this broad foundation built in chemistry, biology, math, and physics, all of the things that make up your biochemistry education. Very broad. And then as you move towards your fourth year, you're going to be taking more and more biochemistry courses, right? And so in your second year, you'll be taking cellular biochemistry. So that's your first real core biochemistry class. What are proteins? How do they work? What is metabolism? How do things work at the cellular biochemistry level? Physical biochemistry. So that's a little bit more of the mechanisms, how things bind to each other, how they interact, and things like that. Those are kind of your introductory biochemistry courses at the second year level, but you'll also be taking complementary biology courses. So genetics, maybe animals, form and function, which is more of an animals related course, or maybe plants. And so you get to pick between animals or plants. Are you more interested in maybe the plant biochemistry maybe in the future, or animal related biochemistry? And then you'll be taking your complementary chemistry classes, right? Analytical chemistry, organic chemistry, and some stats. Some math, right? You need the stats to be able to understand what things are significant, what research findings are important, things like that. In your third year, you'll begin focusing more and more your interests, and you have more selection over the types of courses that you take. You'll be taking some core courses. These are your third year biochemistry courses. These are again, more advanced courses in biochemistry. You start to get into practical biochemistry, using your hands, learning about equipment and methods and things like that. So that's your practical biochemistry. So where you're in the lab, you're in the lab in second and first year as well, but this is an advancement of that in practical biochemistry. You'll be learning about methods, right, in biophysical techniques and applications, right? So modern research biochemical methods. You'll be doing molecular biology, and then you'll start being able to choose from more options to be able to complement your degree, right? Are you interested in plant biochemistry? Are you interested in human physiology and anatomy? Are you interested in comparative physiology? And you won't know yet, but as you go through your years, you'll develop these interests. And then again, you have your chemistry courses that complement your biochemistry education. And in your fourth year, you'll have lots of flexibility in being able to choose the courses that match your interests, right? So there's a core course and kind of your methods in biochemistry. So this is a hands-on practical course. You're in the lab developing things and inventing new things as well, new methods. And then you'll have a choice in, you can pick one of bioinformatics. Are you interested in the big data and things like that? Maybe immunology. Maybe you're interested in growing cancer cells in a dish and studying them, right? So you'd be interested in advanced tissue culture and tissue engineering, or maybe you're interested in disease. So there's biochemistry of disease. These are only 4 examples. There's a huge list of courses that you can pick through and that complement your interests, and you can find those in what's called the course calendar. And so these are going to be 400 level courses and 300 level, or 3,000 and 4,000 level courses. Then if you're doing an honors degree, you get to work in somebody's lab. So you get to partner up with a faculty and work in a lab and work with them to do an actual honors project. And so you might be able to publish your research findings. You'll work in a modern research lab. with grad students and alongside a faculty member to do real world research questions, which is really great experience. And so what you'll receive is hands-on training and evidence-based teaching, right? So one huge advantage that Carleton has is that we lead an experiential learning, right? And so getting you into the lab, having you do things, in practice, right? So you'll be taking lab courses right in your very first year, all the way through to your fourth year. You'll have opportunities immediately within your first year to get into faculty labs, and work with faculty and learn from faculty and do some practical lab skills, right? So we have practical courses where you get to go into the lab and learn by doing and apply the theoretical concepts that you've learned in lecture to kind of real world examples. And, in upper years, you get the opportunity to work in active research labs on independent projects. You get to collaborate with graduate students and faculty members to prepare them for working in your chosen field. And so by the time you get to your third and fourth year, you'll have an idea on the type of biochemistry that you want to work on. And then you can partner up with the faculty and their lab to work and get some practical experience in that field. Now I'm talking about upper years, right? Because we're thinking in terms of honors projects and things like that. But if you're really interested in doing research and hands-on research and kind of getting into a lab and learning what it's all about, you don't have to wait till your third or fourth year. You can get involved in biochemistry in your first year, right? So you can actually team up with faculty in their labs coming out of your first year. And so my own lab, I have a first year student that's working in my lab this summer, and she'll be doing and learning the same research that my grad students are doing. And so really it's a great opportunity for undergrads to take part in, and one that I didn't get in my undergrad. I was not at Carleton. So, maybe you don't want to work in a faculty's lab. Maybe you're not so interested in academic research. Maybe you're more so interested in biotechnology and getting a job in industry and things like that. And so you can also enroll in Carleton's co-op program, where you can gain a year to a year and a half of work experience as part of your biochemistry undergraduate degree. So you can work in the biotechnology industry. You can learn what it's all about, and then finish your undergraduate degree and get a job in that area. You'll leave your program with practical work experience. And so if you're interested in that, you can talk to the co-op education office for more information. Like I said, there's a number of ways to get involved in the Institute. It's a very involved institute where faculty work with students. Students get hands-on training, and there's programs developed and that are unique to Carleton that really promote this. And so, if you qualify, you'll be able to apply for research internships and scholarships. There's the dean, something, you don't need to remember this right now. You'll get emails if you are qualified for this, but there's something called the Dean's Summer Research Internship. And so that's offered to first-year students that have a GPA over 10 or 10.5 out of 12. You would qualify for this DSRI award. You would email a faculty. They would say, yeah, come work for me. You'd write an application, and you might get one of these DSRI awards. I always have one working in my lab, and I know lots of other faculties do as well. So it's a great opportunity to not only get experience in a research lab, but get paid to do it, right? And so it's like a summer job, but you get practical experience in biochemistry doing research, which is great. After your first year, you can continue doing that, where you get paid in the summer to do academic research in a lab. But instead of the DSRI award, it becomes an NSERC Undergraduate Summer Research Award, or Biochemistry Institute and the chemistry department uniquely have a Walker Summer Research Award that's available as well. Carleton, as a university, also has the iCurious program, a work study program, and opportunity for students to volunteer, right? And so work study allows you to team up with the lab during the academic year and get a couple hours of paid work per week. So you can do part-time work in a lab at the university while also doing your program. So that's great. Apart from your courses and doing research and working with faculty and getting involved in biochemistry in multiple different ways, and another really important part of your undergraduate education is getting involved in student life, right? And so student clubs, student societies, making friends, meeting your peers. It's never been more important to have an active and social societies inside of the university. And so the Institute of Biochemistry has several that you can get involved with. You'll hear about some of them through other programs, like the Science Student Success Center is operated from the Faculty of Science, and so it's a much broader umbrella. So there'll be people there from chemistry, biology, earth sciences, things like that. But the Science Student Success Center is a Faculty of Science umbrella. But they're there to support you and learning, and maybe you're interested to go to med school, and they'll review your application, help you develop your applications, and practice interviews, and all of these kind of really key important things. But at the biochemistry level, we have student societies that are organized and run by students to get people together to intermingle between students and to intermingle students with faculty on a social level, right? And so they have student mixers. You can see at the bottom left-hand corner, there's some people doing an open mic kind of cafe. So that's called we had a cafe night where students kind of showcase their skills and faculty go, and lots of great conversations and things like that. And it really it's great because sometimes it can be intimidating to reach out to a faculty, or that you might be interested in what they do, but you've never had a course with them or talked to them before. That's a great way to introduce yourself to many different faculty, and that's what we're there for. There's also something called Liquid Dynamics Lab, which is basically a lunch pizza party. Typically it's every month, right? There'll be beverages and pizza, and everybody goes and has, get some lunch and talk and chat, and really, really kind of nice. And then there's different mixes of events every week, right? And so the example here in the blue box is Science Kindness Week. That was organized by the Science Student Success Center. But there's different activities every single week, and you'll see a dog in the first one on Monday. That's my dog. So she's a student therapy dog, so she can come to campus and just to meet and greet with students if they're interested in it. We used to have them in the greenhouse, right? And so it's kind of like a tropical environment where the dog would be there, and you can kind of come and be around the greenhouse and the plants, and pet the dog and have a chat and kind of just relax. And so there's lots of different events and societies that you can get involved with, but that's really an important part of your education. So just a couple quick words from the Student Society. So it's a society organized by undergraduate and graduate students, and they want to say something for this presentation, and that their goal is to work towards creating a community between chemistry and biochemistry students, as well as creating an atmosphere of learning and enjoyment, right? And that's from the president of the society. And really the society is meant to bring students together, bring students with faculty, and have a good time and just have insightful chats and conversations and things like that. And to facilitate that, they have different events throughout the year. I talked about these liquid dynamics labs. You'll see that all the pizza boxes open on the far right hand side there. They'll have games nights, and so you'll see the Among Us game night that they had February of last year. They'll have presentations, and so maybe just to introduce faculty to different students and things like that. Maybe it's a guest speaker. So there's lots of different ways to get involved. And so, what might you do in a week as a biochemistry student? Attend classes, of course. You'll have this experiential learning opportunities, right? Teaching labs at every year of your education, right? Where you get to go into the lab. So these are actual pictures, right, of the labs that you'll be working in, and you'll be able to practice what you learn, right? Put the theory, put the theory to practice, really. And this bottom picture here is one of our biochemistry faculty, Dr. Bill Wilmore, working with one of the students in his lab. And so you could do some research with the faculty. We have lots of different faculty doing a wide variety of different research topics. And so I'll give you a very brief introduction to those. We already talked about different types of fields and research that are ongoing in biochemistry. Agriculture, food, bioanalytical, nanotechnology, biotechnology, toxicology, environmental toxicology, different diseases, genomics, human, plant, and animal and microbial biochemistry, metabolomics, molecular biochemistry, protein biochemistry, stress and adaptation. We've talked about all of these in different ways throughout the last 20 slides. But I'll highlight a couple different researchers in the projects that they kind of work on, right? And so we have people that work on plant biochemistry, we have people that work on disease biochemistry, insect biochemistry, and toxicology, right? And so Dr. Shelley Hepworth is here on the call. She's answering any questions that might be in the chat. So she's working on plant biochemistry. Dr. Owen Rowland's also working on plant biochemistry and natural products that are produced by plants. Dr. Jenny Bruin's working on toxicology and diabetes, right? So how environmental toxins drive diabetes, which is really interesting and a growing topic of important. Well, it's a really important topic. Dr. Heath McMillan's working on insect cold tolerance, and an example of that is certain species of mosquitoes, right? And so they're held outside of Canada. Maybe they carry diseases and they're held outside of Canada because of Canada's cold winter, right? And so they're in the southern states. But as things warm up and winters become less cold, or maybe the mosquitoes adapt to be able to deal with the cold, they can move further north and come into Canada, right? And so these are some of the things that he's working on. And Dr. Amy Rand, she's working on detecting and studying environmental contaminants and how they impact human health. And so I already gave you a little bit of what Dr. Heath McMillan's lab works on. So he works with stress and gene regulation, metabolism. How do these insects survive cold? How do they adapt to cold? How do things change at the biochemical level when dealing with cold? And so he works with a couple different organisms to study that, crickets, as well as he works with fruit flies, right, Drosophila, and mosquitoes. Our current Dean of Science, Maria DeRosa, so Dr. Maria DeRosa, she works in biochemistry as well in the areas of bio-nanotechnology and biophysical chemistry. And so she makes little pieces of DNA, specially designed pieces of DNA that have biological activity or biochemical activity. They could be used to release fertilizers for plants, or they could be used to treat diseases. And so these are the type of research topics that she works on. My lab works in the areas of bioinformatics, right? So this dealing with big data and using computers to solve complex questions. And we work to study proteins and more of the molecular biology side of things. And so we study how proteins work, right? And so if we understand how they work, we can understand how their dysfunction, or when they don't work, how they drive disease, right? So we do that, as well as make drugs to target those misfunctional or dysfunctional proteins. And we work with pharmaceutical industries in the Ottawa area to be able to develop these. And so if you want practical experience in industry or biotechnology, that's what my lab does. And so then I thought I would show you kind of in the vein of maybe this is more geared towards the computational biochemistry program, but it does touch on different aspects of biochemistry. This is actually an excerpt from a computational biochemistry student, Francois Chéry. He's now a grad student, but this project was started as an undergrad and has moved into his grad studies. And so this is a nice example of how we use big data to solve modern problems. It's a 1 minute, his thesis in 1 minute. So I thought I would share it. Hopefully you can hear it. So I'll start it.
Our cells comprise over 20,000 proteins, which carry out a plethora of chemical reactions in the cell. Unfortunately, when these proteins become a bit too hyperactive, diseases such as cancer arise and cells may begin to replicate uncontrollably. As part of my research, I replicate the principles of evolution inside very fast supercomputers to design tiny proteins called inhibitory peptides that will stick to these hyperactive proteins to restore normal activity. After many generations, the most promising or fittest peptides, as Darwin would put it, make it to the real world so that we can test them in the lab to confirm their effectiveness. Our peptide design method is on the fringe of drug discovery, and we have all the reasons in the world to be excited about how it will someday influence how we treat human disease.
Okay, great. So that's a complicated project, really kind of distilled into 1 minute. But essentially, what you can take away from that is the use of big data, right, and supercomputers to be able to design little pieces of protein that function as therapeutics, right? So in this particular example, he can build the algorithms to be able to create them and then test them and move them all the way to a mouse model, which is interesting. And he's done his education here at Carleton, and he's still currently a grad student. So the other thing is, because of all of this practical experience, right, that you're able to obtain as part of your undergraduate education, our undergraduates publish their research, right? And so this is a very, very small subset of research papers that students have published. I just pulled from my own lab because I had access to those papers, but this is the same for all many, many labs inside of the Institute. That you actually, because you're doing modern research questions in modern research labs with faculty that have active research programs, you're going to work on topics that are publishable, right? And because of that, you're going to have the opportunity to, or you may have the opportunity to publish your research. And so these are first author papers, right, from graduate students. And so every single one of these who are listed as the first author were undergraduates at Carleton doing research in a faculty's lab. And these aren't old papers. These are from just the last couple of years. So I think the oldest one here is 2019. And so, this has a lot of, I'm really driving home this experiential learning opportunity, right? Get involved, hands-on, learn what biochemistry can do, right? And apply the theory to practice. And so that's a huge advantage that you'll have here at Carleton. If you have any questions, we're here to help, right? That's why we're here. We're here to teach and to mentor undergrad students. If you have questions, reach out to a faculty, get in touch with the faculty, ask them questions, get involved. If you have questions related to administration, you can direct them to the administration team, right? And so that's who's here, pictured on this slide. We have the director of the Institute, Dr. Tyler Avis. The administrator that might answer a lot of your questions in the main office, Leah Tannehill. Your undergraduate administrator is Hyun Bo. So any kind of, you need a course override, if you have questions related to courses. And actually there's an update here. We have Suzanne Patterson as your undergraduate advisor, and it's actually Dr. Owen Rowland, but you'll be contacted with that as well. And so these are the people that you can reach out and ask your questions as far as the admin side of things. And so you can always visit the biochemistry website for up-to-date information, who to reach out to for different questions, right? Okay, and that's it for this slide. So this is 45 minutes. I think we'll move over to the booths, right? And so we'll give a couple of minutes for you to ask any questions over chat, things like that. We'll move over to the biochemistry booth. And if you have questions about administration or general life as a biochemistry student, you can ask questions there. This picture, just to give you some background, these are actually some biochemistry students from 2 years ago. There are students that were in my 4th year methods and biochemistry class, and they're graduating there. And so many of which have actually gone on to grad school. So move over to the booth. We can answer your questions. Maybe you just want to chat about biochemistry a little bit more. That's fine. We'll be there all the way to 11:30. So I'll end the presentation here, and hopefully we'll see you over at the booth.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigger. That was wonderful. And thank you also to Dr. Hepworth working in the background here. Again, if you have any questions or want to explore the program more, definitely encourage you to head over to the academic booths section, and then you can find the biochemistry booth specifically, where they'll be until 11:30. And afterwards, for sure, check out all of our other student services booths. You can find out about admissions or international admissions, residents, athletics, all these great things. So thank you so much for coming. Hopefully we'll see you here in the fall. Bye, everyone.